Hi BookTube, my name is Juan. I am just one reader. We are halfway through the year already, which is kind of unbelievable, and yet here we are. And you know what's coming. This is a list of the 5 best books that I've read so far this year, and the opposite, the 5 worst books, the garbage that I've read so far this year. So I'm giving you the best, followed by the worst. I am closing with the worst because I feel like that's always, more fun than the best. So here we are. First, I'm going to start with the 5 best books, or my favorite books that I've read so far in 2019, in no particular order. So here we go. The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This is the story of a character. He grows up in this very, very dysfunctional family, and he grows up as a homosexual living in incredibly Catholic Ireland. And we follow his life, and he is a great character. The story is epic in scope. We follow his life. We meet a lot of characters. It's a great cast of characters. We experience a lot of really crazy stuff. I mean, if I told you what happens in this book, you would probably hate the concept. However, if you read it, you would probably love it because the tone in this novel is very peculiar and very whimsical and biting. It has a lot of teeth. It's very sardonic and very sarcastic, and it's wonderful, and the tone is what makes everything come together and make sense. So I love these characters, I love this author, and I love this book, and yeah, I need more John Boyne in my life. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, or however it is that you pronounce it in the actual Russian. Vladimir Nabokov, I have no idea. Anyway, so this great masterpiece, this work of literature that everybody who claims to be a reader has to read. I read it earlier in the year, and it took me around 2 months to read it because I really wanted to take it seriously. I took it as an actual reading a project, very scholarly. So it took me a long while to complete it, to dissect it, to analyze it, and it was a chore. It was difficult, not just because of the subject matter, which is very provocative and incendiary, but also because it is a very wordy, very stylized, very stylish kind of text. But you know what? It was a great reading project. It was a great experience that I had getting involved with the text, and I got so much out of it. And even though it's not a book that I see myself rereading, at least not in the near future, I am so glad that I did, because this was the definition of a beautiful book. Broadway Nights by Seth Rudetsky is not a book that I thought I would love as much as I actually did. I absolutely loved this novel. It's by Seth Rudetsky, who is a very important persona in the world of Broadway. You can find a lot of his videos on YouTube, Playbill Video, and he is wonderful. I've watched his videos, and I've been a fan of his for many, many, many years. And this year I was lucky to stumble upon this novel and read it and gobble it up, and it was so amazing. It was full of Broadway things, like it really takes you backstage, and I just love books that deal with the kinds of things that I really like Broadway or opera or certain movies. So reading this was like finding a friend who really gets you and who enjoys talking about the same weird shit that you do for hours and hours on end. So yeah, I loved this book. It's maybe not highbrow literature, but like Lolita, but oh man, I loved this book. A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood tells the story of a very important day in the life of a 60-something-year-old man or a 50-something-year-old homosexual man living in the 1960s in America, in California. And it is one of those perfect kind of books. It's a gem of a book. I buddy read this with Leo from the channel A Little Book Life, and I really, really enjoyed reading it along with him. And the book itself is one of those books that I know I will be rereading throughout my life, like maybe every 5 or 10 years or so, and I will just keep coming back to it. It's such a powerful, poignant work of very short fiction, and it actually reminded me of certain books like Stoner by John Williams, you know? Um, these kinds of books that I'm talking about, like Stoner or this one, are very short. The language is beautiful yet understated. It's monochromatic and yet full of life and full of nuance. And it's so powerful and so character driven, and you know, even though it's a very short work of fiction, it tells a lot and it has a lot to unpack. So yeah, definitely loved A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood. And finally, I have to mention my favorite book of the year so far. I will be very, very surprised if this is not my favorite book of the year by the end of the year. This is the one and only, the wonderful, the whimsical, the extraordinary 84 Charing Cross Road by the Queen herself, Helene Hanff, my queen. So this is a book that I don't honestly understand how I hadn't read before, how I hadn't uh, enjoyed it before. It's incredible that I spent 27 years of my life without this book in my life. So this was one of those rare instances in which I read a book and I immediately felt like, oh, I am so stupid. I cannot believe I had been living without this in my life. It's that wonderful. It's a perfect match for me as a person and as a reader. It's a perfect fit. You know, I am single, but I am feeling like if I ever meet someone that makes me feel the way that reading this book made me feel, like, oh, this is right for me. This is a match made in heaven. This is completely right up my alley. This is the right fit for me. Then I am getting married. I am not getting married today. From Sondheim Company? No? Anyone? Anyway, so this book is incredible. It is whimsical. It is just lovely and charming. It's so charming. It's the most charming book I've ever read in my life. And the most incredible thing is that it is nonfiction. So yeah, this is actually something that really happened. This also makes me hopeful for humanity and for people and for life. And, you know, it makes me hopeful that I can find good relationships and good friendships with people who are weirdly bookish and who understand me. And, you know, that is BookTube in a way. That's what BookTube has done for me in a way. The same thing that this book has done for me. Anyway, that is my favorite book of the year. Now, let's move on to the 5 worst books, the garbage that I've read so far this year. This is gonna be great. Kiss of the Spider-Woman by Manuel Puig. Now, I didn't hate this book. I gave it 2 stars, but it's not a really memorable book. It's not a really well executed book in my opinion. I thought there were some pieces in here that I really liked, but overall it felt like a hot mess for me. Just a mixture of a lot of things: fiction, non-fiction, weird, slightly boring, and by the end the author had completely lost me. So it's not a horrible book, but it's not a good book either, and it was just a weird experience, not very memorable. How to Survive a Summer by Nick White. Another book that I buddy read with Leo from A Little Book Life, although he didn't actually finish it. He DNF'd it by page 100 and something. I was the lucky/unlucky bastard who pushed through and finished the damn book. Let me say that this book has 2 great things. The cover, which I think is really, really great artwork, and secondly, the concept, the premise. Basically, it's the story of this really depressed character, this protagonist who is very gray, very bland. He would fall under what psychiatrists call dysthymia. He's just very sort of a very depressed person. And we start learning about his life and how when he was younger, he went to a gay conversion camp where these really crazy religious people did horrible things which would fall under the category of torture, according to me, trying to cure them of their homosexuality, of course. And we sort of start understanding and learning and discovering more about him and his past and what happened in this camp. And some parts of it were really interesting and really provocative, and I really liked those very rare scenes and parts from the book. But the rest of it was very accessory. It felt like just a lot of really unnecessary information. Like, this is a 350 page long book that could have been edited into a short story, I think, and it would have been better, 1,000 times better. I didn't really like any of the characters, which is not really important. I don't need to like the characters. I need to care about them and want to read about them and care for them. I didn't. It was just a very bland, boring kind of book, except for those very incendiary parts that I really enjoyed, but those were very few, and yeah, the book as a whole just is not a good book. The writing is, this is gonna sound very pretentious and snobbish from me, but I thought the writing felt very amateurish. It felt very, very bloated, but sometimes also very juvenile. So I feel like the writing style was really bad, and overall, I did not enjoy this book. Young People's Concerts by Leonard Bernstein. This is a transcript of some musical concerts with a huge orchestra that Leonard Bernstein conducted and performed in the 70s. And it's basically a transcript where we can have access to those wonderful master classes or demonstrations that Leonard Bernstein did for young people to understand certain concepts of classical music. And, you know, the idea itself is great, and I'm sure those concerts were great, but reading the book instead of actually listening to the recordings and having the music aspect of it, you know, it was just a very frustrating experience. It felt like a very incomplete experience for me, and it was just very boring without the music. So I am not blaming the author or anybody who was involved in making this book. I just think essentially this book is not right as a book. I don't think it should be a book. I think we should get the entire experience with the music, with video, the actual experience, or we shouldn't have it at all. Because like this, it was just incomplete and very, very frustrating. Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin. There is one good thing that this book has, and that is the author's name, Armistead Maupin. How cool is that? Other than that, this book is garbage. This was hot trash. And I'm sorry, because I know that this is supposed to be LGBT treasure, and how could I not like this? I am a bad homosexual. I really don't care. I thought this was hot garbage, really. Basically, this is a collection of strangely put together vignettes, scenes, maybe, if you could call them scenes, with awful characters who are awful human beings. Everybody in this book has some sort of personality disorder. They are certifiably insane, and I say that because I know what I'm talking about. Trust me. Everyone in here is so crazy, has a severe disturbance of the personality, a personality disorder. Everybody in here is empty or lost or depressed or borderline. Everyone in here has some kind of mental illness. They are not likable characters. They are not eccentric, cool kind of characters. No, they're just horrible people doing menial things that I didn't care about, and it was a long book for what it was, and I just didn't care. It didn't feel like a story. It's not, there's no story in here. It's just a series of weirdly stitched together vignettes, and it was horrible. It was horrible. And still, there is one book that I probably hated even more than Tales of the City, and that is Bel Canto by Anne Patchett. What a load of crap. This book is a load of crap. This is manipulative, garbage, manipulative, sentimental trash, just horribly written. This was so sugary, it almost gave me diabetes. I'm pretty sure I am at least pre-diabetic thanks to this novel. I thought the writing style was one of the worst things that I've ever read. The characters were so ridiculously caricaturized, like they were cartoons, not people. The situation was ridiculous. The plot was so conceited and so unbelievable that I was laughing. Constantly laughing uproariously. This was, I mean, I was like, how can people read this kind of shit? It made me angry. There's, you know, this kind of highbrow theme of music and opera and bel canto, and you know, I am a pretentious son of a bitch bastard who loves rambling about opera and bel canto and uses Italian terms as well. I am that pretentious son of a bitch. So you would think that I would like this kind of pretentious bullshit, sentimental garbage. I did not. I thought this was the worst thing ever. And you know, to top things off, the cherry on top of this crap of a sundae was that there is an epilogue. And if you've read this book, you know what I mean. That epilogue is so... it's one of the worst things ever, as this book is. So, no, big no to this one. I am so glad I have gotten rid of this negativity. And you know, I'm also glad that I mentioned the 5 wonderful books that I've read so far this year. It's been a great year, even though I haven't read a lot. I have read many great things, memorable things, both good and bad. So anyway, that's me, Juan, from Just One Reader. I would love to hear from you guys or read your comments down below in the comment section. Please tell me, what are the 5 best and the 5 worst books that you have read so far in 2019? I would really love to know.
Me detengo, espero y escucho, por si acaso hay algo más, algo dulce que quizá las montañas me quieran decir. La música da vida a las montañas, canciones de amor que de siglos son. A mi corazón llegarán sus notas, su voz se alzará hasta el cielo y más, hasta anochecer, como alondra que aprende a rezar. Si solo estoy, subo a las montañas. Y qué bendición siento al escuchar la música que hay en el gran silencio. Y